Welcome to the Guard Exile. Do you wish to embrace your inner craving to machine gun hundreds of projectiles at your enemies while bench testing your computer? Perhaps you want to have some fun for a change with a different form of cast on crits? Then you have to try out Lancing Steel Machine Gunner Deadeye to shower everything in cold-hearted destruction with a torrent of ice spears and freezing pulses. So, let's check it out. I initially saw the build a few months ago and it immediately piqued my interest. However, it seemed way out of budget but did not deter me from trying. After many regrets, gear pieces, trial and error, I am finally able to get it stable with insane damage output, but of course it's still a glass cannon. The idea of the build is to use Lancing Steel with a 100% chance to crit and cast on crit in order to proc as many ice spears and freezing pulses in quick succession to rapidly clear the screen and absolutely decimate bosses you face. We take advantage of the Omniscience Amulet giving us 130% elemental penetration, more spell damage via the skill tree, and gems along with a 20% chance to deal double damage from the cluster jewels. You will have to level as Shattering Steel until level 51 where you can equip a Terminus S sword which enables you to start gunning your way through content. Of course, the budget of the build is high, but all you need initially is the sword and Omniscience Amulet with attributes on most gear pieces to get started, and then later invest more to the proper setup. I do not recommend this build if your computer has any forms of lag or stutter issues and will not be liable for any game crashes or melting of hardware. So, do you want to machine gun hundreds of projectiles around while bench testing your computer? Then smack that subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified of my latest videos. Also, drop a like on the video as it helps me to reach more exiles, and don't forget that I live stream here on YouTube, so come swing by sometime. Should you want to support me, become a member of the channel to gain access to extra perks. If you need any help with the build, then join my community Discord, the links are down below. If you're watching this build guide after patch 3.17 Arch Nemesis League and the title's patch number has been advanced, be sure to check the description down below and pin comment for updates on the build. Please note that the viability of the build is subject to change as some items, mechanics, or skill selections may change in between patches. With this being said, the build can differ from the video. This build is meant for mapping mostly and can do bosses easily, only if you know the mechanics very well, otherwise you will die often. Offensively, we use Lancing Steel to fire many projectiles that procs Ice Spear and Freezing Pulse. Each projectile critical hit will fire out 10 Ice Spears and 9 Freezing Pulses depending on which skill is selected to be procced, that is further increased via Chain from Ricochet, and our Sniper's Mark, making all of the projectiles split from the enemy showering the screening projectiles. In order to achieve getting as many critical strikes as possible, we make use of increased critical strike support, our mastery and skill tree, gear, 4 medium cluster jewels with precise retaliation and pressure points for a 20% chance to deal double damage. We also make use of frenzy charges, giving extra attack speed, and power charges for extra critical strike chance and multiplier with free tailwind from our ascendancy. To boost the damage further, Pain Attunement gives 30% more spell damage along with extra spell damage from our weapon and Arcane Surge too. In order to fire our projectiles in an array, we have high attack speed and action speed we gain from Gale Force and the Torrent's Reclamation Bout, plus we get some cooldown recovery from it and our Boots Implicit too. Lastly, our Hatred, Herald of Ice, Precision and Zealotry auras give much needed damage boosts to the build. Defensively, we are a glass cannon, we do not have much mitigation, but it's enough to remain comfortable. In order to achieve somewhat decent defenses, firstly we rely on our evasion rating from gear, grace and blind from disorienting display to dodge attacks and spell suppression to deal with spell hits. Secondly, steel skin is used to counter up to 2400 damage while it's active, which is then paired with petrified blood in order to prevent immediate damage from hits that you receive to rather be taken over the next 4 seconds. This is countered by our Watcher's Eye Jewel having life gained on hit. The last layer we take advantage of is the Keystone Strength of the Blood from Lethal Pride paired with Vol Pack to increase our total life recovery rate from Leech so that we take up to 30% less damage from everything. Phasing from a Quartz Flask is also a bonus, letting us slip through enemies when needed. The playstyle of the build is very straightforward. You start off by using the Zealotry Aura and popping your life flask to top your life back up, then use your Call of Steel to gather shards. From here on, you just Lancing Steel your way around while refreshing Zealotry every 10 seconds and Call of Steel each time before you attack to get as many COCs to proc as possible. In terms of bossing, the same concept applies, just keep out of nasty mechanics with dash to reposition yourself to continue your damage. For our pros, the build delivers amazing and satisfying clear speed. It melts bosses with over 25 million Shaper DPS. It's super fun to launch projectiles all over the screen and watch everything just die. It can be started on a low budget. You are able to off-screen your enemies, making for a safer playstyle. In terms of the cons, we are a glass cannon and can be one-shot easily if we are not careful. We cannot see mechanics happening, so it's difficult to dodge boss fights or AoE on the ground. The build is gated by critical investment and levels. We are unable to do any forms of elemental reflection and no regen. Our class and ascendancy choice is the Ranger's Deadeye and take the following nodes in order of priority. Gathering Winds gives us free tailwind for much needed action speed. This includes moving, attacking and recovering from stuns, making us a little more agile, which is further boosted by the 10 Gale Forces we stack up from using our skills. Ricochet makes all of our projectiles chain at least once and an additional 30% chance for all of them to chain when they hit terrain. This includes all walls or anything that generally would stop projectiles. Focal Point. Our Sniper's Mark gains increased effect and we take less damage from all enemies near our marked enemy. Our mark also transfers to other enemies when they die, but we kill them so quickly so it doesn't even have a chance to do so. Endless Munitions is really a huge damage boost for the extra 2 projectiles it provides us with, but can be swapped for fast shots if you seek to kill bosses quicker with a 60% more damage multiplier. In the path of building is leveling trees, a budget, current and min-max setup, which is down below in the description. However, we grab the following keystones and masteries in the tree. Pain Attunement gives an extra 30% more spell damage as we are always on low life due to reserving our life. Strength of the Blood from our Lethal Pride jewel enables us to take less damage from all damage we receive for improved survivability on the build. We cannot leech damage this way and you should use the Watcher's Eye jewel to counter it. Vol Pact. This goes hand in hand with Strength of the Blood, doubling our total recovery amount from Leech to further reduce the amount of damage we take at the cost of losing life regeneration. In terms of the masteries, we grab the following: Life and Grace Reservation Efficiency, Critical Strike Multiplier against unique enemies, Life and Increased Maximum Life, Critical Strike Chance increased by Spell Suppression, Increased Attributes, gain a frenzy charge when you hit a marked enemy, and maximum total recovery per second from Leech. You can use any Pantheon you see fit, however I found the most optimal to be our Soul of the Brown King as the major. This is to prevent us from being chain stunned along with cannot be frozen and to reduce the effects of chill on us for the extra quality of life it provides. Soul of Gorokan as the mana to reduce the effects of shock on us by 60% and the cannot be blinded to mitigate the map modifier. In terms of your bandits, you must kill all of the bandits for the 2 skill points. In your weapon, you socket in an anomalous Lancing Steel to increase the travel distance of the projectiles linked to Divergent Inspiration to further reduce the mana cost of all of our damage dealers and more damage. Increase critical strikes in the 3rd link to bump up our crit chance to over 90% in order to ensure we have a higher uptime on our procs. Greater multiple projectiles for your 4th link to increase the number of projectiles we shoot out, boosting our damage output by a really large amount. In the last 2 links, our Spear and Freezing Pulse go here to be triggered from Lancing Steel's critical strikes. In your helmet, an anomalous mark on hit linked to Sniper's mark to curse rare and unique enemies, giving more projectile damage and a shitload of extra projectiles. Divergent Inspiration must be linked here in order to reduce the total cost of the mark. In the last link, Arcane Surge for the more spell damage it provides us with and should be kept below level 6. For the body armor, we socket in our auras that reserve mana, being Anomalous Petrified Blood to prevent 5% extra damage, Hatred as it gives us more cold damage, and Grace for the more evasion rating we gain from it. To further reduce the cost of the auras, we use a level 3 Enlighten, otherwise we won't be able to fit all 3 of the auras. The last 2 sockets should have dash linked to Second Wind as our only means of moving out of sketchy situations and getting between packs of monsters. In the gloves is where we have our temporary aura that is Zealotry for the more spell damage it gives an extra spell critical strike chance, plus we take reduced effect of curses on us when on the consecrated ground. This should be linked to Divine Blessing and Life Tap to instead make it cost life rather than mana. Just do note that you will have to re-enable this every 10 seconds as it's not a permanent aura. In the last socket, Steel Skin must go here and be put on your movement button, giving extra damage mitigation when it's active. Lastly, for the boots, we reserve our life for the remaining auras with Arrogance, giving increased effect and should be linked to Herald of Ice, supplying the satisfying explosions that complements our hundreds of projectiles. Precision helps out a lot with the extra accuracy rating to ensure our hit chance remains as high as possible, and then Vitality in the last link that is paired with our Watcher's Eye Jewel for the life gain on hit. In the Path of Building notes, I will include how to craft each rare piece of gear the build requires, should you want to craft them yourself. Our weapon is an Exquisite Blade as it gives extra global critical strike multiplier that has Shaper influence for the modifier. Socketed gems are supported by level 20 cast on critical strike in order for us to proc our Ice Spears and Freezing Pulses. The weapon must have increased spell damage with increased critical strike chance on it and increased attack speed in order to trigger as many casts per crit as possible and must not be ignored. Getting one that has % critical strike multiplier while a rare or unique enemy is nearby, along with any flat % chance to deal double damage, or while focused, will boost the build's damage significantly. As an extra bonus, you could have +1 to Socketed Gem levels modifier to increase the damage further. Your helmet should have the Labyrinth Enchant 15% chance to gain a power charge on critical strike with Ice Spear. The implicits you need are % increased mana reservation efficiency of skills from Eater of Worlds, and % increased critical strike chance for spells from the Searing Exarch. You must try to get as many attributes as possible, such as Intelligence, Strength, and Dexterity with a high life roll. Getting a helmet with high evasion rating that has a % chance to suppress spell damage will be super solid as well. The body armor has to be an evasion rating base with the implicit % increased evasion rating from Eater of Worlds and % increased effect of non-curse auras from the Searing Exarch. Once again, you will need spell suppression and have any strength, dexterity, or intelligence on it, and a high life roll too. Having chaos resistance is not a must but does improve survivability, and if you have an open prefix then you can craft on % increased maximum life for extra life. Our gloves are Breath Stealer for the anointment Hematophagy, giving extra leech recovery. These gloves are awesome as we gain increased attack speed and then create a Blighted Spore when you kill a rare monster. What this does is it takes a random rares modifier and creates a spore on the ground with said modifier, giving extra buffs during mapping, plus we get a little extra resistances from the item. Your boots will need the implicits % increased cooldown recovery rate from Eater of Worlds and % increased action speed while a unique enemy is in your presence from the Searing Exarch. You must try to get a pair that has spell suppression, high strength or dexterity or intelligence with a high life roll. Having movement speed is optional but does increase your ability to move around. If you are able, grabbing a pair that has an open suffix will be huge to craft on any extra attributes. Moving on to the biggest damage booster for the build. Crystallized Omniscience enables us to convert all of our attributes except our base attributes of the character to apply to Omniscience instead. Per 10 Omniscience we gain 1% to all elemental resistances and 1% elemental penetration. Meaning if we have over 1200 total Omniscience as we do, then we gain 120% to all elemental resistances and 120% elemental penetration, allowing us to somewhat ignore getting resistances or any penetration for the build. Your annoyance should be either utmost intellect or utmost might for the extra attributes that they provide us with. Next up, we have the rings that should have strength, dexterity, and intelligence on them with a high life roll. You must get ones that have an open prefix in order to craft on the non-channeling skills have -7 to total mana cost, otherwise you won't be able to sustain. These will be very expensive to acquire, but crafting them as I did only costed me 1 exalt per ring. Check the notes in Path of Building for this. Lastly, our bout is the Torrent's Reclamation, which should be corrupted for the implicit modifiers % increased strength, intelligence, or even dexterity to further raise our attributes. The Harbinger of Time skill it grants us gives 10% increased action speed, so we can attack faster and reposition even quicker. The increased cooldown recovery rate enables us to trigger more COCs and should be a high roll if possible. We also get some much needed attack speed as a bonus too. In terms of the flasks, we make use of a Divine Life Flask with instant recovery when on low life and immunity to poison if used while poisoned is a must have in order to stay alive when petrified blood over degens and for after using Zealotry. Dying Sun is amazing for the build due to it giving the extra 2 projectiles for our Ice Spear and Freezing Pulse with a little increased AoE for our Herald of Ice Blasts. A Jade Flask for extra evasion rating with immunity to bleeding and gain a flask charge when you deal a critical strike is a must for sustain. A Quartz Flask as it gives us extra spell suppression and phasing to slip through enemies. You should have immunity to Ignite as Ignites do kill the build really quickly and gain a flask charge on critical strike. The last flask is optional to anything you want, however I run an Onslaught Flask giving extra attack and movement speed with flask charge gained on critical strike once again. Moving on to the jewels, we utilize 2 large cluster jewels with adds 8 passive skills and 12% increased cold damage. The first dual 1 added passives in Blast Freeze to spread your freezes and Doriani's Lesson for the leech from your spells. Your second cluster should have Disorienting Display to blind enemies for extra survivability, and the other passives are whatever you see fit. Please do note that not having your Helmet's Labyrinth enchant getting Storm Rider is a solid option, but you must have some flat lightning damage to attacks on at least one piece of gear. For the medium clusters, we make use of 4 of them with adds 4 passive skills and 15% increased critical strike chance. The added passives you need to have are Precise Retaliation and Pressure Points to boost our critical strike chance by a massive amount. In total, you will also have a 20% chance to deal double damage, which will be all the time due to your always landing critical hits. A Replica Conqueror's efficiency is very important for the non-channeling skills have -9 to total mana cost, which goes hand in hand with our ring crafts. A Watcher's Eye Jewel with a modifier life gained for each enemy hit while affected by vitality is a must in order for the build to function smoothly. Should you not be able to obtain one, then I recommend dropping the Strength of the Blood Keystone or using rings with life gain on hit. A Lethal Pride socketed above Charisma enables us to gain extra attributes with Strength of the Blood so we take less damage from hits. For your remaining jewels, you should get any that have flat attack speed, critical strike multiplier with cold skills, % increased maximum life, global critical strike multiplier, reduced mana cost of skills, critical strike multiplier with elemental skills, or reduced effective curses on you. Just remember that at least one of these jewels needs to have corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. Leveling the build is easy and stress-free with Splitting Steel that will be used until switching to COC at levels 51 or 70. For Act 1, you'll want Splitting Steel linked to Onslaught, Chance to Bleed, added fire damage, maim, and added cold damage. You'll want to pick up Leap Slam, Ancestral Protector, and Wall Banner. For Act 2, you'll want Splitting Steel linked to Chance to Bleed, vicious projectiles, maim, onslaught, and lesser multiple projectiles. Here you'll want leap slam linked to faster attacks and to pick up Herald of Fire and Herald of Purity. For Act 3, you'll want splitting steel to be linked to impale, vicious projectiles, slower projectiles, onslaught, and lesser multiple projectiles, or greater, however you see fit. Now you will want to drop Herald of Fire and replace it with Pride. Once you hit level 51, you will want to drop Splitting Steel so that you can switch to COC with the Terminus S Sword and Thief's Torment Ring. Here you'll want Lancing Steel linked to cast on critical strike, increased critical strikes, greater multiple projectiles, Ice Spear, and Inspiration. Your auras should be Hatred and Precision for the extra damage and accuracy rating. From here on, you will be set until level 70 where you can switch to the Shaper Sword while following the gems and gearing according to this guide to get it set up properly. Some useful uniques for leveling include Loctanial Caress, Wanderlust, Gold Rim, a Tabula Rasa, 2 Red Beaks, a Karoo Ward, a Verm's Mold Bout, Hrim Sorrows, 2 Le Hoops of All, an Astromantis, a Shiver Sting, an Edge of Madness, or a Rigwald's Charge. Leveling the build through the acts, I was skeptical at first if I could make the build work. However, as soon as I switched to the setup at level 70, I could not have been happier to see how the build started to take shape. After some investments, it took off, covering the entire screen with projectiles, making for amazing clear speed with juiced up maps, not to mention how awesome the damage is when bossing. Watching their health bars just drain down was so damn satisfying while the screen was filled with projectiles. In conclusion, this has been the most fun I have had playing a COC build in all of my years playing Path of Exile, and highly recommend that you give it a shot. Even with being a glass cannon, the deaths are really well worth it. I leveled and did everything with the build on my live streams, so should you want to see how I got to where the build stands now, then go have a look, or come join in the latest streams that I do right here on YouTube to see the next build that I play. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, as I release update videos and detailed build guides just like this one. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and to share with your fellow exiles. Thank you to everyone who supports me, I really appreciate each and every single one of you. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video, live stream, or guard exile.